After you've made sure that your writing is as clear as possible and made sure that the tone of the writing is appropriate, again, especially in academic writing, then it's time to look at organization. And organization's a really tough one. We haven't spent much time on that this semester, and one reason is it's really difficult. What I can say overall is that organization is much more than just the order of paragraphs in the paper. I think sometimes students think that organization means which point do you deal with first, second, etc. But organization is really the structure of the paper, the way the paper works. Organization is what allows a reader to move through your ideas and understand the points that you're trying to make. If your paper's not well organized, the reader's not going to understand what you're trying to say. The first thing to look for in organization is to make sure that the paper has a clear central idea or a thesis. Every paper, no matter what it is, a personal narrative, a public argument, a summary, or in this case a proposal, needs to have a clear central idea. And the reader needs to know what the idea is, and everything in the paper needs to relate clearly to that idea. The paper needs to be connected to each other, in other words. If you look at the paragraphs in the paper, all of the paragraphs should relate back to that main idea. I'm not saying they all have to restate the thesis, but they all have to have a clear and unquestionable relationship to that main idea, and the reader ought to be able to see that all those paragraphs are pointing in the same direction. But it's not just about thesis. In addition, you need to make sure that the relationships between the paragraphs are clear. In other words, why is paragraph 4 between paragraphs 3 and 5? Is there some understanding of what paragraph 4 has to do with paragraph 3, etc.? Sometimes transitional phrases at the beginning of the paragraph is the best way to handle this. But however you do it, you need to make sure that all of the paragraphs in your paper are not just pointing in the same direction, but point clearly to each other. In other words, paragraph 1 should lead to paragraph 2, should lead to paragraph 3, to lead to paragraph 4, etc. In fact, I almost wish that the arrows in this slide were reversed, because what often happens is that paragraph 2 looks back at paragraph 1 rather than paragraph 1 leading to paragraph 2. The paragraphs sometimes refer back to the ideas in the previous paragraph to explain the relationships. Now, within each paragraph, it's also important that the paragraph has a clear central idea. Sometimes paragraphs are referred to as miniature versions of a paper, and there's some truth to that. Just like the paper has a thesis that guides the entire paper, the paragraph needs to have a central idea that guides the entire paragraph. All of the sentences in the paragraph need to relate to that idea, and all of the sentences in the paragraph need to relate to each other. When you're looking at the final exam, for example, I'll give you a paragraph to revise. One of the things you need to do is make sure you understand what the clear central idea of that paragraph is. And you need to make sure that all of the sentences in that paragraph are dealing with that idea. If they're not, you need to either separate them into a second paragraph or leave them out altogether. And then you need to make sure that the sentences within the paragraph are in such an order that it's clear how one sentence leads to the next sentence, or how each sentence refers back to the sentence before it. Organization of paragraphs and papers is absolutely essential.